Testing, 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 testing. JB here. Hope everybody's doing outstanding. November 15th, 2023. Apologize for my voice. I'm a little under the weather. Hope everybody's doing well. Just going to get on really quick, talk about some of the trades I've took on the last couple of days, talk a little bit about the market, and go from there. But first, obviously, we'll talk about the S&P. And so we had the CPI numbers yesterday. We have, the Fed's going to have another decision here in December. Back at the start of November, in the middle of October, you had concerns that the data was pointing to a continued strong economy, which would imply that the Fed is going to start to, possibly price into raise rates. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we had the jobs report, which came in weaker than expected. Now we have the CPI data, and it just kind of points to eventually you have to think that the Fed's going to start cutting rates, probably in the spring of 2024. So that wasn't the case a couple weeks ago. Yes, the SPY, I think, was down to 408. Let's see, we hit 410 or 408 right at the end of October, and then it's just been a massive reversal up above the upper Bollinger Band. I was looking for a bounce, and I kept putting on a watch list. I didn't have my bear suit on, but I was looking for a bounce. But I thought first I thought 415, then we broke through that. I thought maybe 398, and then sure enough, we have this huge reversal. So I'm a little more biased. I wouldn't say to upside, but more to calls on some names that might do well, even if the market kind of chops around here. So we'll have to see how things play out. We had some of the possible, headwinds. We had the government shutdown. Everybody, you had a new speaker, so we thought, well, not we thought, but you thought that might be another issue. They're going to kick the can down the road. Is there going to be some kind of credit downgrade? We have geopolitical concerns. You have two wars across the globe, so certainly some things that would cause some angst, right? Some pressure. But then on the flip side, now you have this meeting with China and the U.S. You have Biden and Xi, however you pronounce it. As much as you would want to think that might be a bad thing, it's very hard for me to think that this meeting would be anything but positive. Just the fact that they're going to talk, and not that there's going to be concessions on either side, but I think that bodes well, especially for China ADRs. So we'll have to see how things play out. I talked about on Monday on the watch list, I thought 450, and sure enough, here we're at 450. Upper Bollinger Band is 451.58, came up to 451.76 at the open. So that's an area of resistance I'll be watching. And then on the flip side, probably 449 or so on the SPY. So that's that. TripAdvisor. So TripAdvisor, it's one of those names I've talked about on and off for many, many years. I think it's a great story. It's the most trafficked travel website on the planet. There's no argument. That's a fact. So because you would think you would have some kind of leader that would be able to monetize that first, that platform, and they haven't been able to. Just mind-boggling to me. So every year, every quarter, every year, it's the same story. If you don't know, TripAdvisor is actually a spin-off from Expedia. So I don't know how many years ago, maybe it was 10 years ago, Expedia spun them off, and they have failed to try and they just haven't monetized. I just don't get it. And they tried the Trip Plus solution or service, but finally, now they had a leadership change. So I think it was like 3 quarters ago, announced a leadership change, and now they finally seems like they've turned a corner. You would have to think all this pent up demand from COVID, that they would just be it would be a big benefit for them, and it hasn't been the case. But hopefully, this quarter is kind of the start of the turnaround. So I went and got some calls, locked some of them in. I think it goes over $20. I posted a couple weeks ago after the earnings. I think it goes over $20. Great story. I mean, the company, if you look at the valuations, it's not expensive by any means, and especially if we continue to have travel on the up end, on the uptrend, it's a good sign. So I'll continue to hold the trip calls. Great story. I think it heads higher. Baidu, so I traded Baidu back in the summer on the AI hype. If you take a look at a name that's going to be the biggest impact for AI in China, it's Baidu. I've told these stories many times. I used to love Baidu back in the day because they were, the Google of China, and I gotta look at Roblox because Pinto's. Oh, it's investor. Must be Investor Day on Roblox. So they were the Google of China. I used to love them, and then they started to languish. These other competitors came in the China space, and their first, their search dominance kind of waned a little bit, and then they started to try and catch things. They tried to do things like for the if you were in the U.S. Grubhub or these, they called it online to offline offerings. That failed, and then they used to talk about autonomous driving, and then they talked about AI, and they talked about AI for many years, and then finally AI is front and center. And here's Baidu, which has tried to look for a new revenue solution, and it looks like it's the right time, right company, right time, right place. I looked at Baidu. Obviously, it was much higher. Played some calls for some profits, some losses. Here it is down at, it was I think it was 107. Was it 107 on Monday? Yeah, 108 or so. But I think, again, as mentioned before, I think this meeting between Xi and Biden can't be, even if it is there's no material events that come from it. I think it just bodes well for these China ADRs that people are calling to get delisted. So I locked some of the 115s in, added some strikes into next week. They report earnings next week. I would not be surprised to see this into the 130s and beyond next week. As crazy as that sounds, I'm not going to hold. Well, hopefully, I'll get the opportunity to lock some of the calls in to cover costs. But I think Baidu is going to head 115, 120. Take a look at the chart. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Of course, I don't have it front and center. I put a little gap fill, but the gap fill is like 114. If it closes over 114 today, I think it heads the 50-day moving average 122, and then the 200 days 134. I think there's a possibility here for a nice reversal. So that's kind of the thought process on adding those Baidu calls. Not going to add anything more here, but just a great story. Now we flip it on to another story that was great. Here's WW International, all the way up to $13 start of October, gave 50% of that back, was under $7. No news, no catalyst. They had earnings, and the earnings were similar to the earnings before, where they kind of lowered guidance. They're just trying to tamper investor expectations. Again, I don't think the story's changed. I think they're at the forefront of this change in the folks who not only want to lose weight, cardiovascular health, all these different solutions that are going to come from the GLP-1 craze. Not only that, addiction craze. At some point, there's going to be studies that come out. They're going to show that, hey, you can take GLP-1 drugs to help alleviate alcoholism, drug addiction, things like that. Don't quote me on it, but I look at WW, and these insurers are eventually going to, all of them are going to require some kind of, program before they get a prescription, especially with the cost. The costs have to come down. So it's kind of like a, 50-50 thing. So, if insurer is going to get you a prescription, you have to do your job. And, I think that's where WW comes into play. So anyway, we'll have to see how that all plays out. That's why I continue to be bullish. I'm not going to add anything. The 50-day, the 200-day moving average on WW, hang on. Yeah, 774. So once that gets over there, maybe I'll add some more strikes. Tough one to hold here. It's been good and bad this year. But I don't think the story's changed. So that's kind of the story here on WW. AVAV. Back when the Ukraine and Russia situation was evolving, you had these rumors that there was going to be orders from the U.S. around AVAV drones, and now you have this other front. Now you have in the Middle East, and AVAV announced they have a VTOL, right? A vertical takeoff and landing vehicle that can track ships and things. They did did a demonstration. I just think it's a great story. They have over $500 million in back orders. I think it's more than that. I'd have to look at the most recent numbers. They report earnings in December, so able to lock some of my November strikes in, added some Decembers because I want to take advantage of the earnings. And I think this heads 140, 150, 160 as a under the radar kind of defense play. And not that I hate to make money off of war and fear and things like that, right? It's not a good feeling. But at the same token, I'm here to trade the market, right? So if I think that there's going to be an increased demand in something based on an event or things like that, I'm going to try and take advantage of it. So that's one of the rationale behind adding some AVAV. I'll continue to look for opportunities. It's an inexpensive name, in my opinion, especially if, drones are the future of warfare and, reconnaissance and all that stuff. So I'm still surprised. It's sitting here. I think in 2020 it hit 135. So it's not at all-time highs. It's getting close. A lot of folks, there's some people, and back in 2021, people were putting out some research, and there's a lot of shorts on this name saying that the AVAV drones are garbage. It's pretty much like putting a phone on top of a helicopter you can buy on Amazon. I don't think that's the case. I mean, the military has orders out for their products, not only U.S. military, but other militaries across the globe. So anyway, so that's kind of the thought process on AVAV. Hopefully, I'll get the rest of my 130s. I think it's going to go into the 135s before the week's out. That's kind of the thought process there. My voice, I don't know if I can do any more. I'll do two more here. A Fiverr. What else can I say here about Fiverr? The stock, the company reported earnings that were kind of weak, so they ratcheted back their guidance. Earnings were okay. Stock sold off in the pre-market and then reversed course and started to rally. I went and got some of the 25 strikes. So sure enough, was the stock due? Then it sells off into the close, and then it's been kind of chopping around. I think it went all the way down. Went down to 21 or so on Friday, and now here it is, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're starting to rally up another 6% today. My 25 strikes are back almost flat, and I think maybe this is kind of the relief quarter. This is the bottom for Fiverr, and then it can finally head onward and upward. So I'm hoping I'll lock some of my 25 strikes in, and then I'll just hold the December 30 strikes. Who knows if it goes to 30. I don't think I need it to go to 30 for my strikes. They're already in the green. Maybe it gets to 27, 28 in the next week or two. I can lock the rest of December's in. But Fiverr's a great story. You take a look at, and it mentioned with the AI evolution, people are looking for ways to maximize their productivity. And Fiverr is a great way to do that. Great solution. And people talked that Fiverr would lose their business because AI is going to replace what some of these gigs that they had on their platform would provide. And I think it's the flip side. I think people are going to look to Fiverr for gigs that will be able to help them maximize AI. And we've seen that already. I have to pull up I had screenshots on their gigs back in the summer, and I'll probably have to do an update on that. But I think this heads much higher. It was $300 back with COVID. Everybody was doing the gig economy. So a lot of these names have already sold off quite a bit, but I think there's an opportunity here to play that for upside. So that's one of the reasons I got that. I'm not going to really talk too much about Clear either, ticker YOU. And it seems like, did my options update yet? The U option chains are down today. I'll have to look into that. Not really. I mean, it's not like I can do much with those anyway, but U is a great story. Seems like a company that doesn't really have a moat around their business. They just provide easier passage through airports. So instead of going through TSA, you have Clear. They get your biometrics, fingerprints, eye scans, retina scans, and then you can get through security quicker. They take you up, pass through TSA up to the, to check in. So that's Clear. So people look at Clear and say, wow, there's really no moat around their business, but they've been building it. They're building all new checkout lanes at all these airports. So that's kind of their moat. And then you look at a TSA, and at some point you think maybe they're going to try and go to some kind of solution that Clear provides, where it will help. Not only, it's sad to say that people lose their jobs, but maybe it will provide some kind of automation to what goes on with TSA and the security process. But I've talked about this with Clear before. You have so many other solutions than just airports. You have stadiums, venues, other security situations that require some kind of verification. Hospitals. So there's a bigger total addressable market for you. But then the flip side, there's a lot of people who don't believe in that story. So there's a huge short interest, a lot of sellers. So every time it goes up after earnings, people just go in and they just double down on their shorts. So I put it on the watch list this morning. I said, hopefully, at some point the sellers are done. They have no more ammo, and this can finally start heading to the upside. Huge fundamental story, growing top line over 30%. Great cash position. They offer dividend, stock buyback. I just, the other side, and I've said this before, but it seems like there's one of the shorts emails Bloomberg to do a hit piece. Is it Bloomberg or Reuters, however you pronounce it, do a short piece on you because they've had at least two negative pieces on you where they talk about some person who was able to get through the U security process, similar to what they do with the Tesla fires, right? A Tesla car, now there's hundreds of thousands, millions of Tesla vehicles on the road, but there'll be a headline about one Tesla vehicle going on fire in an accident because of the battery. And that's supposed to, it's a big clickbait thing. Similar to you, it's like how many folks, and they have millions of members on the Clear Secure platform, only one person got through security that they have to make this big issue of, but it's great clickbait for these companies. And I think these media outlets, and I think someone, especially probably if you were short the company, probably sent that to them to post this piece. So not only does the short win because it might pressure the stock, but then it's great clickbait for these companies. But that's you. I'm not sure I'm going to add any more here. Again, it looks like the option. I was actually, when it was up 2050, I was going to look for some later strikes, but I'll pass on that. A Target, what was it? Square last week, Roku the week before. Just some of these names that have squeezed off earnings that I'm kind of disappointed. I put them on the watch list and I just passed on. I actually was looking at the 125s yesterday, and then I think Target was trading 112. Then it started to fade, so I kind of passed. So disappointing to say the least. But you never know with these earnings trades, hero or zero. I think that's it. I'm trying to think of some of the other names I've been looking at recently. Other disappointing names. I mean, CMG. Take a look at CMG. Was it? I think it was 18. Was it 1800? Let's see. Might have been 1800. Up here, 2150. VKTX. Somewhere in January, February, March in 2024, they'll report their study on their oral weight loss drug. So that could be a big deal. They had a update on their NASH data yesterday. The stock started to rally. It's up here 1138. I'm not. I added calls for the hopes of this, not the hopes that they were going to announce their oral data this quarter. It's going to be the next. I'll probably wait, and then I'll add something into 2024 in VKTX. To me, this GLP-1 thing is not going away. If anything, it's going to gain more traction and momentum. And I think some of these outlier names outside of LLY and NVO are going to start to gain some spotlight. And all it's going to take is one acquisition in a name that's trying to develop a GLP-1 drug that's just going to spark VKTX higher. Saw last week too, the FDA approved LLY, their Mounjaro drug for weight loss. So it's called Zepbound. I don't know who comes up with these names, but again, just increases the total addressable market for WW. And once these drugs have more supply, it's going to do is increase the member base for WW. Member base goes up, margins go up, revenues go up, and WW goes up much harder. I think that's it, folks. Sorry about my voice. What else do I have? I think that's it. Oh, Adobe. Oh, disappointing. So, here's Adobe and multi-year highs. but not at all-time highs. Great AI name, and upgraded yesterday. There's an acquisition, I guess the EU is going to come after, so I don't know if that's why the weakness came in today, but I think that's 620, 630, 640, and then all-time highs in the coming weeks. So even despite the calls I got today, yesterday, I'll probably look for some more calls in the coming weeks to play for upside, because I think that's a great, I wouldn't call it under the radar AI story, but I think that's a great way to trade the AI space. I think that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll try and get on audio again tomorrow. Hopefully my voice will be better. Rock and roll.